Hey guys, coming to you this week from Portugal, Lisbon to be specific. Beautiful weather day, standing out on my balcony. This week's show, powered by Thrifty Traveler, sees guest host Julian taking over for Richard Kerr this week. We talk about Hilton's new elite status tier and whether the rumors about what you get with it make the juice worth the squeeze. Visa and MasterCard seem to be nearing a settlement in their decades-long battle with merchants, and we're wondering if this is going to affect our points and miles in the near future. And just because I can't help getting the joke in with Julian back in the seat, I give him just a little bit of razzing about the fact that I got him banned from Uber. All that on this week's show. Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles to Go podcast. After a stop on a couple of different continents, coming to you from Lisbon, where I have a little bit of a poor signal today and an even weaker co-host. Welcoming Julian back to the show.
Wow.
Mr. Keel, it's good to have you here.
That was very smooth. I got to be honest. That was like a slam, but I barely even noticed it. I'm like, whoa, hey, yeah, who's that? Oh, wow. That guy is a good host. He knows what he's doing. That was pretty good. Yeah. How you doing, Ed?
And now we're back to reality, right? Yeah.
I am sitting in just this week for Richard Kerr. Rest assured, he will be back, I'm sure, next week. It's not a contract dispute this time. You know, Ed is, of course, giving Richard everything he wants now that he's, big man on campus over there at Belt Rewards.
Everything he wants. And we're keeping you, well, not quite keeping you yet from your beloved Miami Dolphins, but hoping to get our recording done in time for you to watch the Dolphins to lose to, who are they playing this week?
It will be the Buffalo Bills, so it will definitely be a loss. And by the time everyone's listening to this, they'll be discussing whether the coach should be fired again. But in any case, yeah, I would say even if I miss the beginning of that game, I'm not really missing anything.
Yes, and I could just say I can make fun of you in that way just because I know my football team will likely be losing this week as well. So,
yeah. Well, we're two of a kind here, Ed.
We are two of a kind. A little bit of housekeeping before we get into the good stuff. 571-293-6659 is how you get a hold of us. You can text us or leave us a voicemail at that phone number. You can email the show, ed@pizzainmotion.com. I am at Pizza in Motion on all social media channels. And while he does have a personal Instagram, we'll go with at PointsPath on all of those channels.
Yeah, I would definitely do that because, as you know, I'm not too good at the Instagramming myself. So, but hopefully, thankfully, I have a bunch of people who are good at it.
I relish in the fact that I can say that I'm better than you at Instagram, which to most people would sound impressive, and to you, it does not sound impressive at all.
I mean, does it count if I'm not really trying? I guess it counts. I think it counts.
Well, in fairness, I'm not sure I'm trying either, but yeah.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, look, our good friend Summer Hall, man, she tears up the Instagram. She's all over that thing. She's
a social media.
I don't know when
she is. Yeah.
I don't know when she has time for that. I don't know. I don't have time. I gotta get some sleep.
She's better than us at a number of things. Social media just being one of them.
I was number of things that she's not better at us. That is, I think, short.
All right. If you'd like to support the show, you have a link here in the show notes to our Slack channel. A couple bucks a month. You can be part of our happy hours on a weekly basis. We have a couple meetups each year. We've actually got a comment from our Slack community from Nate. He's had two different run-ins, and I've heard more of this lately. He's talking about the fact that Uber did it again to him, where he's got credits from a variety of credit cards, and when he goes to try to apply those credit cards to his Uber ride, he gets charged the full amount, and his Uber credits are not redeemed. Mr. Keel, I'm wondering, have you ever dealt with this problem?
Ed, why are we starting with a sore subject? Why are we starting with... I think the regular listeners know this, but let's just cover it once more time for folks who might be joining new. Ed got me banned from Uber about 2 years ago. Literally, Ed got me banned from Uber, and it's a long story. I don't think we have time for it today. But for 2 years now, I've had to only use Lyft because I'm not allowed to use Uber because of Ed. So anytime there's a question about Uber, he brings it to me, knowing that I'm going to get hot about it again. So yeah, why you got to do that, man? Why you got to go there?
At least you don't live in a major metropolitan market where your rideshare is an integral part of getting around on a daily basis.
And not only that, thank God I don't travel internationally a lot where there is no Lyft.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I just, at some point you're going to break down and get a new phone number and sign up for Uber again. I'm just not sure when that's going to be.
Am I? I mean, I don't know. Listen, I don't know about you and everybody listening, but I've had this number for like, I don't know, since college, right? Or whatever. I mean, 20 years, everybody keeps their number now. So I don't know. I'm certainly not going to break down and get a new number just to rejoin Uber. Because I'll be honest, I don't really love them in the first place. But I mean, that's sort of the undercurrent here is that I noticed in the last 2 years, I don't really actually miss not having Uber. But in any case, I don't know. I mean, when was the last time you got a new cell phone number while we're on that topic?
Yeah, I think it was before I was married, so I'm gonna call it the 90s.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Nobody changes numbers anymore. So I'm not, I'll just live without Uber. But as far as this question from Nate, yeah, he's having issues, right? The credits keep applying and then popping off. Is that when he makes changes? Is that am I understanding the issue correctly?
Yeah, I've had this issue happen, and I've started to hear it happen more frequently, and it is sort of a frustration because there's really no recourse other than, them apologizing and telling you to use your credits on the next ride.
Not only that, I can tell you from having been banned by Uber, there's no recourse there for anything. I mean, if you try to reach out to them, it's like talking to a wall, or an AI slop. You don't get any. It's literally just either automated functions or a low level person who has no power to do anything. And really, even as I understand it, even trying to get up into the echelons of Uber is almost useless because there's just to be frank, their customer service is entirely automated and they just don't really, put any resources towards that. So I hear you. I mean, first of all, I would assume that this is more of an IT bug than something that Uber is doing on purpose as far as these credits not getting applied. But also to your point, the fact that there really is no recourse is quite annoying other than to use the credits. And, it goes to this whole idea of, Amex having these coupon books, which are more and more credits that you have to really work to use. And when does that not become worth the effort? I know a lot of people have said, oh, they think that this Amex Platinum revamp that happened a couple of months ago was really good. I don't know that I completely agree, and it has nothing to do with the fact that I can't use $200 in Uber credits, but it's just because it is at the end of the day more coupons for a higher annual fee. And I'm, the older you get, the more busy you get, the more that's going on in your life, and the less bandwidth you have to be figuring out all these credits. I'm gonna devil's advocate this a little bit as I used to do in my youth.
Stepping back into your old days, yeah.
Exactly, and say that I don't think the Amex Platinum revamp is necessarily worth it, and I'm not sure that I'll be renewing mine when the time comes. We will see. That being said, interestingly enough, I will renew my business platinum, but it has nothing to do with the credits or the revamp. It's the 2X now that I can get on up to $1 million and spend. I think that's really underrated. I'm sorry, I know we're way off the original topic.
No.
I think that is actually an incredibly underrated addition to that card. First of all, these platinum cards were never particularly good earners, but to be able to get 2X points, and people say, oh, well, you can do it on Blue Business Plus, but only up to $50,000 a year. And if you have a small business like I do, you can burn through that in like 2 months, So to me, that is actually, I'm using that a lot now. It's a reason not only that I would likely renew my card, it also means I'm more likely to be able to fairly easily get unlimited guest privileges at the Centurion lounges because I hit that $75,000 threshold each year. Because again, I'm not doing it as an opportunity cost. I'm getting 2X for it the whole way on Amex points. So I think that actually is a bit underrated addition and why I'm more likely to keep the business platinum than I am the regular platinum.
Yeah, I agree with you. And for me, I think one of the big benefits is the addition of bonus points on construction expenses, which I'm still sort of ferreting out what qualifies as a construction expense to American Express for that card. But I think that's going to be a huge benefit for me. I think, Richard and I sort of disagreed on a recent episode where we were talking about the new Advantage Globe MasterCard, but I've really started to move into this camp of move me away from coupon books, move me to cards that have a more reasonable annual fee, where I don't have to clear quite as high a bar to keep it in my wallet. I think to your point, young or old, trying to keep track of getting back almost $1,000 a year in value of a credit card is a much harder game.
Yeah, I agree. So wait, Richard was on the coupon side of that?
Richard was on the side of he would rather do City Strata Elite and max out the benefits for that than do the City Globe card for like your everyday person.
I am shocked to hear that because
I
nobody
know.
has been more anti-coupon book really and anti-high annual fees than Richard. Boy, man, did he get hit in the head? What happened? My gosh, that's completely the opposite of what he usually says.
If only you had been on the show to dispel him of this myth. But alas,
I
we
know.
can't have you every single week, as much as I would like it.
I mean, you could, but you'd have to listen to me on this mic.
That's true, yes, and Jeremiah would probably kill me for that.
That's right. That's right.
I'm not sure I could afford your appearance fees either. Let's talk about Hilton for just a second because breaking news, but not the full picture yet. It seems like for the first time in quite some time, we've got a new hotel elite tier. For quite some time now, I think dating back to the Marriott SPG merger, Marriott established a spending threshold to reach their top tier, their ambassador status. They were the first to really do this. And now it seems like Hilton is heading in that direction. We don't have a ton of details yet, but the details that we do seem to have sound like you're going to need 80 nights in Hilton properties and $18,000 to hit this top tier status. Don't know a lot about the benefits, but when you run the math on that at an average daily rate of almost $200 a night, that's a lot to spend with Hilton over the course of a year.
Yeah, and look, listen, I am first of all, I am generally anti hotel points, anti hotel status. I do not chase almost any of it. Hyatt on occasion I will go out of my way just because the points are worth something and the elite status is generally worth something. But the rest of them, Marriott, Hilton, IHG, I just think are almost worthless because of the way that, you can't count on the benefits being honored at every hotel the same way because each property is owned by a different company. So I go into this, anything about hotel status or hotels programs, I go into it skeptical. On top of that, Hilton, I can remember back, oh gosh, it must have been 2011, 2012, when Hilton basically had a very valuable program that people loved, and they just demolished it like almost overnight. They just destroyed it. And I'm talking about mostly the redemption side. And frankly,
Yeah.
I think it's never really been particularly good since. It's had a little bit of ups and downs. But once they sort of took a hatchet to it back, almost 15 years ago now, it's just never been worthwhile since. So, you know, right off the bat, you're basically anything with Hilton elite status or points, you're starting from behind the eight ball with me. Like you really going to have to show me that this is not just yet another blah, blah, blah to a blah, blah, blah program. You've got to, and by the way, you can quote me on that. You've got to show me that this is going to be not just another tier, but something where you're actually changing what you're doing, where you're actually changing sort of, the outlook and the value of this program to begin with, and not just sticking another tier of status on top that's also going to have a bunch of benefits that don't consistently get honored. So, I granted, I'm sure that came across as a bit of an angry rant, and I don't know why, because I don't really even stay at Hilton's to begin with. But that's just the way I feel about it. And I know a lot of people like love their hotel status, and that's fine. Like if it works for you, great. But it is not something that I chase. And frankly, I've sort of mostly stopped chasing airline status as well, for other reasons, simply because the benefits aren't worth the effort anymore. Obviously, they are generally consistently applied with one big airline company. So anyway, what do you think, Ed? Because you certainly, I think, have a lot more interest in hotel status than I do, given how many days you spend in hotels.
Well, I did just want to clarify too for the quote. Was it blah, blah, blah? Was it 3 blahs? Just so I can write it down.
I think it was 3. The first was 3 and the second was 2. I think so.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please go back and listen to the tape, and let's get
Got it.
that right. Yeah.
Got it. I've got it. I got it written down. Yeah. I mean, look, 80 nights is hard to hit in the first place for most folks. And so I think that's a little bit troublesome in and of itself. But the concern with the $18,000 is the same concern I had when Marriott rolled this threshold out. It assumes that every single night is a paid night with an average daily rate of $225. If you were to take 10 or 20 nights a year and redeem points, you now have to have even higher spend on the rest of your nights. And so effectively, I think this is something like a $300 a night average daily rate, which I think is actually quite hard to hit with Hilton. I think with Hyatt, it's a little bit easier to get to a higher ADR only because they have fewer total limited service properties. But Hilton and Marriott both have just a ton of limited service properties where rates are very rarely going to approach $300 a night. I think just given, to your point, some of the things that they've done to the program, the drastic reduction of the breakfast benefit, the amount that they've raised the award prices for rooms, although they did recently reduce some award prices from the atmospheric highs that they put in place a couple of months ago. I'm not a buyer on this. I think, I'm obviously a Hyatt loyalist, but $18,000 is a lot to spend when we're not sure how well Hilton is going to enforce these benefits. And unless there are confirmed upgrades and unless they're real suites, I just as soon take the sure thing with Hyatt.
Yeah, and I guess, again, like you said, we don't really, as of we're recording this right now, we don't know a lot of the details. There is some indication that there's some sort of confirmed upgrades, but we don't know, is that suites? Is that just, best room available, like a nice high floor, So that I agree. And you're also a really good point. Since it's a new tier, we have no idea how much this is going to be honored at actual properties around the world. And we won't know until it actually starts happening. So that's actually a really good point. Let me ask you a question, though, because we're now, in November, and I think you can probably look back and say, all right, well, number one, would you have even come close to this tier this year had it existed? And number two, would you have made any sort of effort to make this tier at the cost of other hotel stays?
So I actually have right around 80 Hilton nights over the course of the year. Resorts World in Vegas is my go-to property. But one of the reasons why it's my go-to property is because it's much more affordable than a lot of the other high-end casino resorts in Vegas. And so I don't come anywhere a $250 or $300 a night average daily rate. I guess maybe if they counted meals towards that from a spending standpoint, I might start to get into the ballpark. But Resorts World also offers some incredible promotions for discounts off of meals. So I think it would be hard for me to hit the spend, quite frankly. And I'd have to look at this point. I have, call it 100-ish plus nights with Hyatt as well. And I'm not sure I've spent $18,000 with them. So yeah, I certainly don't think I would stretch for this just because I think given average daily rate that the dollars are just too high. I think, maybe if there's a scenario where they come out and they confirm that the spending on property counts towards this, then maybe I'd be in shooting distance of it. But like I know you said you don't focus very much on hotel redemptions, which, I can't, in a lot of ways I could say I don't blame you. Hilton has had this habit for a long time where they'll make more rooms available than just a base room, but those upgraded rooms are, just silly, stupid prices. Some of them are 300,000-400,000 Hilton points a night. So with that sort of methodology in place, I would find it hard to believe that they would give a large number of confirmed upgrades when they've already effectively monetized suite upgrades at a certain level and are probably paying the properties at that level, based on the points that they're collecting for that reservation. So far, I'm not a buyer of this, but we'll have to see when more details come out.
Yeah, obviously, I'm not a buyer of it either. So I'll be interested to see who is a buyer and whether it works out well for them or not.
Yeah, I would just say if you're listening or viewing this and you are in this target of you think you can spend $18,000 with Hilton on an annual basis and hit 80 nights, which is a high bar to clear as well. That's a week in a hotel every month all year long. Shoot us a note. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on something like this, what it would require of you to commit that sort of spending and number of nights to Hilton. Quick break before we talk about the impending doom in the credit card world with the Visa and MasterCard potential settlement coming up to recognize our sponsor, Thrifty Traveler. You can get $20 off an annual subscription right now with the code GO20. Julian, it has been another incredible week of fare sales, to be honest. Scrolling back through what was here this week, I actually used the deal this week. There were flights to Tokyo for 50,000 points one way, Seattle to Seoul for 65,000 miles one way in business class. That was a screaming deal. You have nonstop fares to Tokyo for under $1,000, and just a great week of deals out there. Now, I know we're a little bit softer from an economy standpoint, so maybe some of these cabins are clearing up, but I think there, and we're going to talk a little bit about some milestones for PointsPath here in just a bit, but it just seems like the deals that are out there now are starting to accelerate from where maybe they were a year or so ago.
Yeah, I've seen that too. We've been tracking airfare at PointsPath. We track both cash and points prices, and we certainly have seen some softening throughout 2025. Even now, going into the holidays, we're seeing it start to come down from where it was even a couple of months ago. Now we'll have to see what happens with the disruptions that are currently happening as of the time we're recording this. That will most likely still be happening when this actually releases. But
Most likely.
yeah, most likely. But yeah, I agree. If you're up for traveling, especially in the winter, into January, February, March, April, I think you're going to find some really great deals, and having a service to go find them for you is certainly very valuable.
thriftytraveler.com/premium code GO20 for $20 off your first year. We'll have Kyle Potter on in just a few weeks to talk a little bit more about some new stuff they have coming out. But again, another big thanks to Thrifty Traveler for sponsoring the show again this week. And Julian, you commented on the disruption right now with the government closed down. I've actually had a couple of people text me as I'm out of the country saying, hey, do you think you're going to get back into the country? And things still look pretty ugly. I think, at least from a high level, it does seem like the airlines are prioritizing their international flights. The cancellations are mostly domestic. A little bit of concern for me on the Customs and Border Protection side, but it seems like most of the issues right now are tarmac delay sort of things as opposed to getting back in the country. But it's definitely ugly out there in a way that I don't know that I've seen even going back to the last shutdown, because once things got even a little bit ugly, everybody sort of got in a room and got a deal done, and planes started flying on time again.
Yeah, I think you just nailed it. Is that it really is affecting more the domestic routes. I've been talking to doing media interviews on this topic for the last week or so, and watching the numbers. The airlines have mostly been focused on canceling their regional flights, which makes perfect sense, right? It's up to the airlines which flights they're going to cancel, so they're not going to cancel the international ones that have heavy premium class, which is where they make their money. They're going to cancel the small flights to small cities, because that's where, they're breaking even at best. But it does mean that when people say, oh, these reductions are only affecting the 40 largest metro areas, like, no, they're also affecting all these little cities that are having their regional flights canceled. And it really does become a domino effect across the entire country. And then also, to your point, it's not just about the cancellations. We're seeing huge numbers of delays. 20-30% of all flights were delayed yesterday when we're recording this. The system is definitely under a lot of strain right now. I agree. I don't think I'd be so worried about getting back into the country. Maybe get back into the country delayed. You might have to, sit for a couple hours, on one end or the other. But beyond that, we are starting to get to an unprecedented situation here, and we will have to see where this goes. It would behoove the folks in Washington to probably get and find a compromise and get to the end of this.
Yeah, I am much more worried about the domestic flight I have a few days after I get back into the country, and hopeful that this will be solved by then. You flagged an article about the Visa MasterCard settlement, and I'll tee this up for folks. I was actually reading about this earlier today as well, and it was one of those things where I really started to try to. I started trying to dig in to think how big of a difference this might make. So I'll be curious to see what you saw in the settlement that you thought was the most relevant. The two things that I picked out of this. So for folks high level, Visa and MasterCard have had an ongoing 2-decade lawsuit with some of the large merchant associations about how interchange fees work. And all of this is what fuels reward cards. The fact that Visa and MasterCard are able to charge higher fees for certain cards, they're able to rebate those fees to us in points, miles, cash back, you name it. And the two things that I pulled from this, if these do come to fruition from the settlement, were one, that there was a plan to reduce rates by 1/10 of a point over the course of several years. And the second was that there would be some more freedom for merchants to not have to accept cards that came with a higher price tag, if you will. So the premium Chase Sapphire for business, things like that. I'll pause there for a second and I can share my reasons why those are the two most critical to me. But I'm curious what you pulled from this and what tea leaves you're reading.
Yeah, so let's start by saying, right, we don't, the details of the settlement are in flux. It's not yet a done deal. So we don't quite know exactly where it's going to end up landing. So the first one, right, the reduction in the interchange fee over a number of years, I think that while that, to be fair, does equate to literally billions of dollars over time, I think to consumers, and it's not going to be a huge, most consumers, I don't think that's going to have a huge effect on the overall rewards ecosystem. It's the second part that's more interesting, the idea that merchants could refuse to take certain cards if they earned rewards or if they were a certain type of card. Now, again, this is where the details are going to matter. Are merchants going to be able to literally say, I'm not going to take your American Express Gold card because it's too expensive? Or are they going to have to say, I'm not taking any rewards cards at all. I'm only taking non-rewards cards, because those are two very, very different things. Or even, there's many variations between that. We won't take Visa Infinites. We won't take, MasterCard World Elites, whatever, however this can be sliced. This can be sliced and diced in a lot of different ways. So we'll have to see how it ends up. The less merchants are going to be able to slice and dice it, the more likely it is that they're not going to really be able to do it. You're not going to be a merchant and say, I'm not taking rewards cards, because that's going to eliminate about 80% of all your customers. Like, that's just not, so you're going to kill your business. If on the other hand you say, oh, I'm not going to take, like I said, Visa Infinite cards, then that might make more sense. But then, of course, what are you really gaining that much benefit from it by doing that? And on top of it all, what I'm going to be very interested to see is how, as you, I think, know, well, I know you know, but many merchants don't get a very specific breakdown of exactly what cards are charging which fees. It kind of gets all
Right.
amalgamated into one big number. And especially small businesses are generally just playing a flat 3%, 3.5% across the board anyway, or whatever it might be. So they don't really differentiate between different cards. So if you don't really have any transparency as a merchant into how much you're paying for each of these cards, how do you know which ones to not take? Is that going to be part of the settlement, that the Visa and MasterCard will be more transparent about what the fees on these different kind of cards, which I know is certainly an issue that merchants have had, and I don't blame them. So I think there's a lot of really interesting details that are going to have to come out of this if it does come to fruition at the end of the day. Again, the more they can slice and dice it, the more likely it is to affect consumers. The less that they can do that, I think it ends up being a little bit of a nothing burger, but we will have to see.
Yeah, I mean, so I think you bring up some good points. I push back a little bit on this notion of merchant slicing and dicing, and I think you touched on it a little bit in terms of the ability to do that. I think about how so many places now are moving to a model where there really aren't cashiers. Now, small businesses, I mean, family-run businesses, single-run businesses, those will still exist. But I mean, most fast casual restaurants and fast food restaurants now do business via kiosk or online ordering. And so in those situations, how do you tell a customer, in your large merchants like Target, things like that, how complicated does a sign have to be that sits over the register that talks about which cards you can use and which cards you can't use? There's still a lot of turmoil there, I think, that would have to be sorted out in the marketplace. On the flip side, the thing that was intriguing to me about the 0.1% per year, as you know, airlines and hotel companies strike deals with the big banks that are multi-year deals. And so, as those deals come up for negotiation, there's likely to be a considerable amount less on the table than there is now, especially because some of these deals have just all been recently renegotiated. And as you well know, the airlines, I mean, effectively are flying credit card companies. The majority of their profits are coming from this. And so I think even the reduction of a few tenths of a point would have I think a profound effect on airline profitability and card issuance. So I do think that this could change the landscape, not in the way that maybe some others are thinking, where people would be less reliant on rewards credit cards, but I think airfare would go up.
That's actually a good point. So you're right. I talked about it from a consumer standpoint, but you're absolutely right. From an airline standpoint, or a retailer or whoever is issuing these miles, you're right. That could definitely have an effect on those deals. Now, as you noted, That might be that. First of all, I believe that if I read the details correctly, this decrease in the interchange would happen over a period of years,
Mhm.
not all at once. So that would sort of align with this idea that, like you said, these deals are signed for 5, 10 years long. So you're going to have time before you have to go back in and renegotiate. But you're right. When you get to that point, there certainly could be a hit to the bottom line, which then could affect. Like you said, if airlines are making less money off of selling miles to banks, they're going to have to make their money somewhere, and that could mean a rise in airfare. Going back though to the first thing you said, which I didn't even consider as a really good point, all these self-checkout situations, right, which you're right, are becoming more and more ubiquitous. How are you going to do that if you're a merchant? Are you going to be at Target? Your consumer, your customer is going to run all their stuff through the scanner, then put their card in, and it says, "Sorry, we don't take this card. Try another." Most people don't have another. So now what are you going to do? You're sitting here with all this stuff. Most people don't carry a lot of cash around. Is this person just going to walk? You're going to let this customer just walk away without the purchase? That seems crazy. This is exactly where I'm saying I think this is going to be very tough for merchants to implement when push comes to shove.
Yeah, I agree. And fascinating. I mean, as somebody who's been in the restaurant space for a long time and watched technology creep into every facet of our business, I'm fascinated by what this looks like. I think, I don't think it'll provide the sort of cost reductions that merchants are hoping for. But when I put my business hat on, because we're going to have all these technological impacts, like you said, you get a customer, get all the way through the ordering process and then tell them they can't buy their hamburger or they can't buy their socks and shoes and all that stuff. It's do you have to like reprogram your point of sale to swipe your credit card before you key your order in? I mean, there's there's all sorts of things here that are just like unbelievably fascinating to me.
Right. I mean, your money's no good here. Sorry. Right. And now, one other thing we haven't really touched on, that there is some discussion in this settlement that there might also be the ability for merchants to surcharge more than they have been, which has mostly been against the rules, except for like here in states like New York that have separate settlements. So that could be interesting, where they might say you put in a card and say, well, using this card is going to incur an extra 3% fee or whatever it might be. That could be a
Yeah.
way through with the technology where a consumer will be like, all right, fine. And then the merchant has captured the extra revenue.
Yeah, they could. I'll be honest. I think in that case, I think many consumers would probably choose not to incur that fee. And I think ultimately, yeah, would lead back to this, airlines and hotels not being as profitable as they are today.
Yeah, I agree. You at least in that first moment you wouldn't lose the sale, but yeah, I think a customer would. I certainly, when I go to a place that charges me a fee, I tend to try and avoid that place in the future. Sometimes I'll go if it's worth it, or if the cost is negligible in the grand scheme of things. But I do also avoid places that want to charge me extra to use my credit card.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, folks, we've reached that point in the show where we get to talk about milestones. And while Richard is off gallivanting and apple picking up in upstate New York, I have the good fortune of bringing Julian on when we get to celebrate a PointsPath milestone. 100,000 of them, if I remember correctly, Mr. Keel.
That is exactly right. We're very proud of this. We have just passed, for our first time ever, 100,000 users of PointsPath. That's 100,000 installed users, and a big chunk of them that are using it every single day and every single week. And so we are very excited about that. It's been a really great journey so far, and we're looking forward to continuing to grow it. But we didn't want to let this go by without doing something to sort of acknowledge it and celebrate, and also say thank you to these 100,000 users who have joined us. And so what we are doing, we have just opened up to all of our 100,000 users our price tracking alerts for the next week. Anybody, this is usually one of our features that's reserved for just paid users. But for the next week, anybody who uses PointsPath will be able to set a tracking alert. And when we say tracking alert, what we mean is you'll be able to pick up to 5 flights at a time in PointsPath and say, hey, this flight, I want to know when it goes up or down the cost in points or miles. Or if it's not currently available with points or miles, I want to know if it comes open with miles. You click on the flight in PointsPath. We check it multiple times a day. When it changes, we send you an email automatically. So it's one of our most popular paid features, and we wanted to give everybody an opportunity to try it out. And so I'm really excited to give that out to everybody and as thanks. And I hope everybody finds some value in it.
Yeah, Look, I mean, I have bias here. I've been an investor in PointsPath since the early days, and I'm a big fan of the product that you built. But the alerts to me they just align so well with how I think about travel. There are folks in our points and miles world that have almost copyrighted the phrase "chase the fare, not the destination." And we'll go anywhere if there's a cheap flight, but we are a very narrow slice of the world. And most people say, hey, we want to go to Tokyo next summer, or we want to go to South America. And so alerts are the lifeblood of that. So being able to track certain flights and tell when award prices go down is huge. And I love using this part of PointsPath. In fact, I think I've even asked you more than once in the past if I can expand the number of alerts in my account.
And just so everyone knows, for our free users, we're offering 5 of these flights you can track. Our paid alerts users get 10, and our pro users get 30, and our Founders Club members get 50. So, if you do want more, we would be happy to offer them to you. But, the other thing once in a while, it's really fascinating. We build something at PointsPath, and then I'm using it just as a user. And I suddenly go, oh, that's really cool. That's great. I'm glad somebody built that. That's really awesome. And this is one of those things. I can't tell you how many miles I have saved just from this feature. And it's not even what I will do is I will go ahead and this is what I tell everybody when it comes to getting deals with cash or points. Book the lowest fare you can find, but don't stop tracking it. And use these tools like price alerts, like cash alerts in Google Flights. And keep watching the fare, because with almost any kind of ticket nowadays, except for basic economy, you can cancel and rebook for free. And it's especially with miles, because the miles go right back into your account instantly in almost every case when you cancel, and then you can just use them again. So book a flight with miles, keep tracking it, use these alerts. The price goes down. It takes 5 minutes, not even. You can do it right on your phone to cancel and rebook. And the miles just go right back into your account. It's literally saving thousands of miles just by having this set. I personally use this all the time, and I do think it's one of our best features.
Yep. Can't agree more. And I'm happy to celebrate this accomplishment with you, man. It's been really awesome to watch PointsPath grow the way it has. And I think when you talked about starting to do alerts, I was super excited about it. So for the everyday user who's trying to plan a couple trips a year, I think alerts is just, right up their alley on what they need.
Yeah, thank you. And onward to 200,000 and beyond.
And, maybe by then you'll have a better microphone and Jeremiah won't hate you quite as much as he does.
I wouldn't hold my breath.
I'm not holding my breath either. I am going to caffeinate for my dinner this evening, having arrived in Portugal with a quick stop in Morocco. First time in Morocco, so I'll be recapping that on next week's show, and then probably a little bit more the week after once I'm back from Portugal. We do hope to have a different co-host back with us next week, although a roughly equal amount of hair for my co-host next week as is this week. But Julian, I really appreciate you filling in on such short notice, and I apologize for your Dolphins losing by an undetermined number of points today.
But listen, normally I'd say, hey, maybe you're taking a risk by predicting that, but I think that's probably a better prediction than me getting a new mic by the next time we talk.
I'm way out on a limb with my predictions this week, but here I am. Thanks a bunch for coming on with me, Julian. More to come on Morocco and Lisbon, but until we upload again, we've got miles to go. I already hit the button, so we have our call.
You hit the button? Oh, we're recording? This is all live? This is happening?